Hey, welcome to another edition of No Stop Lights. I want to thank our sponsors, Micky Finn's, MPD Electric Cooperative, Schofield's, Carolina Bank, Pepsi of Florence. We'll have more to say about those sponsors as the podcast progresses. We're in the process of figuring out exactly what the ideal length of a podcast is. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, and no matter how good the pastor was, the attention span of the parishioners was normally 9, 10, 11, 12 minutes, somewhere thereabout. But, when you're theologically sound and you're spiritually versed, you kind of want to prove to the masses that you understand with a certain degree of eloquency what you're speaking about. But we're trying to situate our podcast on what we think is a desirable length. There's really two variations to what we do here today. There's a guest-oriented podcast that will have, the current Attorney General Alan Wilson, Will Folks. We're working on Robert Cahaley, some of the other cast of characters you would expect us to try and be in hot pursuit of to join us on our podcast. And then you've got, just kind of a 20, 25, 30-minute version or edition of whatever the timely matter of that moment is. And today is unusual because we're recording a podcast on Monday to drop on Tuesday somewhere around 10 a.m. And there's a breaking news story that in our world of conservative media is a big deal. It's let's say this, Rev. It's not just a big deal. It's a big ass deal. When one of the prominent personalities in all of conservative media are no longer employed with the prominent conservative outlet we all know as Fox News. Tucker Carlson and Fox News have agreed to part ways. A little unusual part of this is that his last show will not be tonight, but rather Friday night. So when Tucker said, thanks for joining us, we'll talk again Monday, I don't know how much he knew. Obviously, there had to be some breakdown negotiations or some sort of animus one toward the other for this to end up happening today and not allowing, his last broadcast to be celebrated, as you would expect, the premier conservative voice in all of cable media. It's not just it's not a big ratings bonanza in conservative media. The Tucker Carlson shows a big rating bonanza in cable television, period. Forget political punditry. Forget right-wing, left-wing, conservative media, liberal media. It's a big rated show in the world of media. So what do we make of this? And there will be, once again, a lot of things we say today that are entirely speculation. We're breaking the story in real time. I think the news dropped a couple of hours ago that indeed they were agreeing to part ways. But there's some things that aren't going to matter whether we get this right or that right. I don't think it was a contract. I think Dan Bongino insinuated that the problem he had with Fox News was contractual, that there was no hard feelings, there was no personal nor professional animus. I don't know if that's the situation with Tucker Carlson. He was in the primetime slot in Fox News, followed Bill O'Reilly. Remember, O'Reilly got charged with sexual harassment, ended up cutting a deal in some way, shape, or form. O'Reilly's denied, that he sexually harassed anyone at Fox News, but he left there. I think there was some sort of negotiated buyout or financial settlement as a result of that. But I've said that since Rush Limbaugh passed away, no one person has been able to command the audience that Limbaugh has. Limbaugh was, one of my kids now, the original gangster of conservative media. He was really and truly the guy that made a lot of what we do possible and attainable and financially feasible to go down this road. So, Limbaugh was the best there's ever been. He was a great communicator. He had an unbelievable control an understanding of the issue at hand, and he was able to articulate that in a way that it combined complexity and simplicity in the perfect form. I would probably be accused of lacking on the complexity and kind of having an overabundance of the simplicity. But when you're aptitudinally challenged, and you have an IQ less than the average American, you kind of got to make do with what you have. But so I've argued and tried to point out that since Limbaugh passed away, that there's been a multitude of voices that have deserved to be heard and considered in the world of conservative media. The reason I put more stock in what Tucker said is Tucker was a convert. Tucker was a Weekly Standard reared neoconservative in the intellectual mold. I mean, I got to believe that prior to Make America Great Again and Donald Trump's 2016 campaign, Tucker Carlson would have aligned himself with the Bill Kristols of the world, the David Frenches of the world, the George Wills of the world, a lot of the Bushies, and, the world of modern intellectual conservatism with a neoconservative bent about it. Tucker, for whatever reason, converted. He didn't convert to Catholicism. He didn't convert to being a Protestant. I have no idea what his religious affiliation was. But something happened to Tucker in the last 5 or 6 years that liberated him to a point of taking on organizational structures. And I'm talking about the body politic. I'm talking about corporate America. I'm talking about the media in general. Now, I'm painting with a broad brush, but bear with me for a second. I think you can paint with a broad brush when you're talking about the complex, the government media corporate complex. And some of this, it even leaks over into liberalism. And it leaks over to the Bernie Sanders. Robert Kennedy is running for president. And a lot of what Kennedy is saying is, the government media and corporations become too friendly with one another, and the American people are paying a price because there's not that check and balance. And Tucker seemed to be motivated. And once again, sincerity, I have no idea. Authenticity, I have no idea. He appeared to be authentic, and he put his career on the line because it's not very popular to take on powerful corporations. You don't last long if you go out corporate America, if you go after, the media in general, and if you go after the body politic. That's three formidable forces that have aligned with one another in America today. Tucker did, as a former modern intellectual conservative, what you would expect journalism to do. And I don't know what Tucker was motivated by. I don't have any idea. Was he motivated by the lack of attempting to find out the truth by the mainstream media? And anybody, with the mainstream media, that's a pretty lame way to say it. You hear that on every street corner in America, especially conservative radio, conservative podcasting, media in general, say the liberal mainstream media. But as we sit today, and I think there'll be time to digest this and better consider alternative motives or where to go from here. Twitter is joyous, you can imagine. The left is celebrating with a great deal of glee that, Tucker is gone. He's banished from Fox News, one of the most prominent voices, not just in modern intellectual conservative America, but in the America First political movement. And that's where I really want to focus on. What happened to Tucker Carlson to force him or allow him or liberate him from being what he formerly identified as into something that was far more risky? I doubt Tucker's invite list increased. I doubt the number of cocktail parties he got invited to increased after he basically said, "I'm sorry for what I believed all these years. It is with great regret that I tell you I was hoodwinked by the modern intellectual conservative with this heavy bent toward neoconservatism." It's hard to say conservative and neoconservative. They're not one of the same, but they're very close cousins, one of another. But one of the loudest voices on the airwaves at Fox News felt compelled to make as his media mission in life, challenging the very organizations that need to be challenged, but nobody's choosing to do that. We do a 4-hour radio show every morning, 20 hours of talk radio. And during those 20 hours, I say things that are a little bit relevant and to be remembered. I say a lot of things that should go in one ear without the other. Welcome to the real world. 20 hours, it's hard to nail it every single time. But the one thing that I've said over and over and over again, and I doubt very seriously Google would be crazy about this. Some of the algorithms and content moderating will probably direct our paths from here. But I think the one thing I'll remember Tucker as, and he didn't die. I mean, Elvis ain't left the building for good. I mean, Tucker's not dead. He's alive and well, and I'm sure as talented as he is. He's proven he can garner an audience. He's proven he can articulate or opine on whatever issue we're talking about. But the one thing I've tried to articulate day after day after day after day is we live in an era of America that journalism has failed. Journalism historically, and it goes back to Jefferson, journalism has historically spoken truth to power, whether it's corporate power, whether it's government power, the media, and the media is not, one exact scientific apparatus. I mean, it's a lot of different people doing a lot of different things, but there was a day in America that journalism and reporting was centered on getting to the bottom of whatever the truth is. They were in pursuit of it doesn't matter what the conservatives think. Doesn't matter what the liberals think. We've got I'm a conservative. I mean, I'm an opinion monster. I've said that over and over again. I'm not here to tell you the truth. I'm here to give you my opinion of what I believe or perceive the truth to be. So on the radio for 20 hours a week, I occasionally, on a very frequent occasion, say that if I don't do anything, I hope I've convinced you, the listener in the morning, the podcast viewer, whenever you're downloading and watching this, and thank you again for allowing us to be a part of your studying in American politics. But I believe that there are some of us who feel compelled, and maybe it's the contrarian spirit, maybe it's the cynicism embedded within, but some of us are far more comfortable saying this: I'm going to take every advantage I have, every opportunity given to me. For me, it's by God in heaven. Doesn't have to be for you, but for me, when given an opportunity to make a plea, to direct a conversation, the center of the issue I debate is trying to convince more people to be highly skeptical of the motivations of your federal government. I don't apologize. I don't dress that up. I don't say, well, I meant to say it another way. I'm sorry I said it so directly and bluntly. I meant to say it just as damn directly and bluntly as I said it. I believe that Tucker Carlson felt a calling. I think that Tucker, he's been around the block. He studied the Weekly Standard. He's a very educated man. He's an intellectual. Once again, I think the difference in Limbaugh and Tucker, obviously Limbaugh was a bigger star. He wasn't on television, couldn't, but Limbaugh's radio audience that he amassed over the long haul was the largest ever in conservative circles, probably the largest ever in media circles. Now, people that listen to Limbaugh 3 hours a day, every day, some did, but a lot of people checked in with Limbaugh. You checked in with Limbaugh for 20 minutes on a Monday afternoon, and then you got busy with your life, but you checked back in with Limbaugh 30 minutes on a Thursday afternoon. You made a point to eat lunch in your car on a Friday afternoon if something hot was pressing in the world of body, in the body politic. Tucker was not able to do that because he didn't have 15 hours a week. He only had 5 hours a week, and it was television. And there's an editing and a programming and a producing to television that does not allow the ad-libbing and the organic nature. In other words, Tucker probably had every single night a script that he followed, a script that everybody on his team was well aware of. I would imagine Limbaugh at times ad-libbed. The producers and the directors of the show probably thought they were going this way, and they ended up going another way. But when I think about the void, the vacuum that Limbaugh left, I do think of Dan Bongino. I do think of Clay Travis. I think of, I'm trying to think of some others. Sean Hannity comes to mind. Glenn Beck, obviously, comes to mind. All of those guys had a flair and flavor, and they all, I don't know if they attempted to take or fill the void that Limbaugh left, but there was a debt of gratitude. There was a degree of respect that they had for Limbaugh, and they felt it was their obligation, or they had an obligation to press on, to move forward. The difference in Tucker, damn it, he's a convert. He's not the likely suspect. He would be one that you would expect to say of America First, stop with the nonsense. Modern intellectual conservatism is the best way to govern our nation. Neoconservatism is an honorable plot, an honorable direction for our government to kind of focus on and advance an agenda on behalf of. And something happened in Tucker's life. I don't have any idea. What was it, for profit? What was it, to make it more popular, Fox News? No clue. No idea. It may have been insincere, as I think it was sincere. But the reason Tucker's different, the reason I felt compelled to do this podcast today in the spirit of Tucker Carlson, formerly of Fox News, is Tucker chose to put his livelihood on the line. I think he started the show in 2012 when O'Reilly left. I think he'd been on the air. No, I don't think it's 2012. I think it'd have been 2016, about the time that Trump gets elected. And we've seen in some of the internal communique, not the biggest fan of Trump the man, but very much a fan of the movement. And here's where I think Tucker bumps into the guy on the street drinking the six-pack of Coors Light. I think Tucker believes that the people who are responsible for holding government and corporations powerful are doing their bidding. That they're complicit. They don't do hardcore reporting. They don't hold powerful people accountable. And Tucker felt that he had an obligation for an hour a night to set the record straight. And he did some very controversial things. I mean, talking about January 6th and his not defending of the antics or actions, but his belief that the story had been totally misrepresented. He's never said fabrication. I mean, I think he's put everything in proper context. But once January 6th became an issue for Tucker, and it became a big issue for Fox News, we heard from some of the representatives of Fox News that they were a little bit concerned about how far down the road Tucker was willing to go in defending some of the misrepresentation of January 6th. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, I don't think I ever heard Tucker defend January 6th.
I don't think so.
I think I heard him say multiple times, let's hear the whole story. Remember QAnon Shaman? And you know, Tucker presented a lot of information that was inconsistent with what the media had told us happened with I call him Daniel Boone with horns. but I mean, that was kind of that was a Tucker moment. And nobody in media, nobody on television was attempting to do anything like that. And the reason I think Tucker drove people crazy is because they knew what he was. I mean, he would have been a likely board member at the Lincoln Project. He would have been a likely writer, the token conservative at the New York Times. I mean, he wore a bow tie and a blue blazer. He's got the well-coiffed hair. He's, he lives in the right neighborhood. His kids, I think, play lacrosse, soccer, and badminton. They probably drive he did all the things that the insiders will allow Republicans to do and still be accepted as insiders. I mean, there's certain criteria. There's certain checks in the box. You got to have 13 of 15. And I think Tucker probably had 13, maybe even 14 of the 15, threw all of that away. I mean, basically said, to hell with all that. I mean, I don't care what they think of me. I could care less what the Lincoln Project thinks of me. I could care less what the Bushes think of me. I could care less what John McCain, Lindsey Graham, some of the neocons of today could care less what they think of me. And he amassed an audience. And my concern is, I don't think anybody did it better than Tucker. And the reason I don't think anybody did it better than Tucker is because nobody was a convert. I mean, I've always been, I don't think I knew this, but I've always been a populist at heart. I've always been a nationalist at heart. I've always been an America Firster. I don't know that we called ourselves America Firsters, but I've always believed that corporations, business, and the media were complicit in this almost a cartel that deprived the average American their best life, that deprived the average American family their best existence, that was not about of the people, for the people, by the people, whatever the, by the people, for the people, of the people. Yeah, I mean, it was none of that. I mean, it was always for the corporation, by the media. And Tucker seemed to be deeply offended by that. I mean, it really seemed to stir and stimulate him to a place of, they think that's far down the road. Watch what we do tomorrow. And you've got a Dominion situation. Tucker was at the center of that. Remember, we touched on that last week about the, actually a couple of podcasts last week about the Dominion Fox News story. Tucker allowed Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani to come on his show and on multiple occasions say things that we found out weren't true or couldn't be proven. Let me back up. Couldn't be proven. We still don't know whether they're true or not, but things that could not be proven. And when Tucker asked Sidney Powell to provide proof of her allegations or her charges, she just couldn't provide any at all. And it looked a little silly, and I think Tucker looked a little silly for allowing this lady on. To Tucker's credit, what did he do once he asked her for proof and she couldn't provide it? He said, "You're not coming back on the show again." And he basically implied, and some of the internal communique that was presented to the public in discovery in the Dominion case, our listeners and watchers are good people. Our viewers are good people. And we can't lie to good people. I mean, we can't allow Sidney Powell to come on the air and say things that aren't true, and we know they can't be substantiated, and we're still letting her do that. So a lot of these ancillary stories surrounding Tucker Carlson and why he's no longer at Fox News will percolate for the next several days. But I'm not as concerned about Tucker not being at Fox. I'm far more concerned about where Tucker goes from here, because we need Tucker's voice in this battle for political supremacy. And guys, that's what it is. I mean, it's a battle for political supremacy. The only people in America today that have a genuine interest in trying to find out where the truth lies are those who have been accused of lying at every turn and lying at every corner. You go on Twitter, you go on Facebook, you go on the internet, you go to Real Clear Politics, you go to Politico, you go to thehill.com. You can't find a story about Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, 12 family members who have foreign bank accounts. I mean, why is that not a story? That should be a hell of a big story. I mean, 12 members of the Biden family had offshore bank accounts. Why? I mean, the media doesn't ask that question. Now they'll cram Dominion and Fox News down your throat until you just can't stomach it any longer. We need Tucker's voice. The media's not going to find its soul. Government's not going to self-correct. Corporations are not going to stop seeking more power and influence over the government. And the only people that seem to be interested in pursuing what the truth is in relation to the media, to government, to big corporations, were people like Tucker Carlson. And when Limbaugh passed away, I felt that a part of that mantle had been passed to Tucker Carlson. Where does he go from here? I have no idea. What does he do next? I don't have any idea. I would imagine Tucker's made enough money to be financially independent, secure, but he's got a lot to say. So does he show up where Megyn Kelly showed up? Kind of an alternate website that they control all the content. They amass an audience. Does he do what Bill O'Reilly did? O'Reilly.com. I mean, does he, find himself a way to communicate to the masses without having to filter it via Fox News or MSNBC or CNN for that matter? It's a bad day for the media today. But more than anything, it's a bad day for the American family, the American worker. I sincerely believe with every fiber of my body that the only way to get America back on course, I'm asked that a lot. I mean, I'm one of these that believe America's in decline. I mean, I guess I am an American pessimist. I'm optimistic about everything in this world until truth slaps me in the face and reality sets in. I am not optimistic about our country's future. One of the reasons I'm not optimistic about our country's future, and I've discussed ad nauseum about its debt, the inability to reform some of the entitlement programs that lead to greater and greater and greater and greater levels of debt. But one of the most concerning aspects of America today is our inability or disinterest in holding powerful people accountable. And Tucker did that every damn night. Tucker held powerful people as accountable as he can. He's one man for 1 hour on one network. He had an average audience of 3 to 5 million people. 5 million when politics are hot and tasty, probably 3 million when people are paying closer attention to the Final Four, the Super Bowl, or whatever. And there's not a a debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden or Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. So for 5 nights a week at 8 o'clock on Fox News, 3 to 5 million people are watching Tucker. 325 million aren't. So the odds are stacked against a guy trying to make that much difference. Well, I mean, he's got as big as opportunity as anybody, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still a small opportunity. So, I mean, I'm not trying to pay respect to Tucker. Tucker doesn't need my sympathy. I mean, he's not asking for my sympathy. What I am trying to do is just say that Tucker, to me, was clearly leading the charge on one of the necessary elements to get America back on track. And that is ask questions of powerful people, whether they want them asked or not. And apparently he asked the wrong questions of the wrong people. I mean, I'm not saying Tucker is to be defended on every night. I mean, has he been careless at times? Of course. I mean, join the club. He's an opinion monster. But by and large, Tucker's modus operandi has been to challenge power, to do what journalists and reporters have always, we've been conditioned to believe that's what they did. But I think Tucker looked around several years ago and saw the lack of reporting, the lack of journalistic interest, the lack of speaking truth to power. And he began, I don't want to say he had a road to Damascus. I mean, I don't know if there was a blinded by the light moment. There's a Springsteen reference. I don't know if there was a kind of a blinded by the light moment, but something happened in Tucker's life that led him from being a modern intellectual who believed in neoconservatism. And he's actually apologized for drinking the Kool-Aid for as long as he did and allowing, I mean, Rev, in the most recent episodes, I mean, January 6th is a big deal. I mean, Dominion's a big deal. I mean, how many times have we heard Tucker question our involvement in Ukraine? I mean, he's had guest after guest after guest after guest. And you know Tucker's highly effective because the defenders of Ukraine won't come on. The defenders of the corporate political cartel that drives a lot of America's political discourse and debate won't come on. I think he invited the CEO of Pfizer. I mean, believe it or not, he declined. I think he invited Lindsey Graham, our state senator, or a U.S. senator from South Carolina, to come on and offer up an explanation as to why he felt, our involvement in Ukraine or the money we're investing in Ukraine is a worthy investment. And that it's not who comes on Tucker's show, it's who does it. And his extended invitations, timing. Well, there's no Tucker show now. So there's the CEO of Pfizer will never go on the Tucker Carlson show. The head of the the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, he'll never come on Tucker's show. Tucker always extended an invitation to those people that he wanted to speak truth to power. And I think it's a sad day in American political media when Fox News decides to part ways with and I mean, forget the ratings bonanza, forget the revenue his show generated. The central theme of why I was a Tucker fan was he did as a non-journalist. I mean, Tucker would probably be a journalist, turned into a political pundit. Punditry pays a lot more than being a journalist. But I hope in retrospect, when we look back at what Tucker did, I mean, he would have gotten some things right. He would have gotten some things wrong. But the one thing he did was try to push the envelope on some of the most needed debates that offended some of the most powerful people on this planet. And once again, I'm talking about the CEO of Pfizer. I'm talking about the head of the World Economic Forum. I'm talking about senators who believe that we're doing the right thing by further involving ourselves in Ukraine. These stories are not getting covered. But these stories are not getting covered because, once again, we have a kind of convergence of power, and there's been kind of an underhanded handshake. That's kind of a weird way to say it. But an agreement within that the media will only ask questions of corporations, but because, once again, who sponsors the mainstream media? Corporate America. I mean, that's how they pay their bills. So it's almost like, and here we go with the Cathedral again, and Curtis Yarvin and Peter Thiel and some of the others. Tucker challenged the glacier. Tucker challenged the Cathedral. Tucker took great joy in aggressively pursuing, sometimes in a vindictive way. I mean, there's no question about it. Sometimes in a very, very vindictive way. As the story progresses, and we find out exactly, maybe we'll end up knowing, maybe we'll never know, what happened when Tucker Carlson and Fox News decided to part ways. Where does Tucker end up from here? I did see on Twitter Megyn Kelly basically saying that he'll be better off for it. Fox News, a lot of people believe that Fox News is beginning to be less aggressive in pursuing the truth, the corporate interest, some of the body politic, the questions need to be asked of the body politic. And it's a sad day in America, but it really and truly is a sad day in America. I did see that on The View, they celebrated by doing a wave. Of course they did. Well, those are uber talented females. With all due respect, no misogynist here, no chauvinistic here. That they are, they couldn't carry Tucker's jock in understanding the complexities of American politics, the complexities of American culture, the complexities. But maybe that's what we want. Maybe really and truly, when I go back to my statements every morning, the one thing that I continue to try and press upon the limited ability I have is to create skepticism of people about what the motivations are of your federal government. Tucker did that as well as anybody I've ever heard. Limbaugh was the best ever, but Limbaugh is not a convert. Limbaugh is not a bow tie wearing, weekly standard working, neoconservative, modern intellectual. Tucker was, and something happened along the way. Saul didn't turn into Paul, but something happened along the way that transformed Tucker into one of the most aggressive voices, not just on Fox News, but the media in general. And I just wish, I doubt it happens, but I just wish some young journalist would reflect for a moment and say, hey, I don't want to be Tucker Carlson. I don't have any interest in doing what he did. He was somewhat of an entertainer. He was a pundit. He was an opinion monster. But reporters need to get back to the business of reporting. Journalism needs to get back to the business of journalistic integrity. And maybe if anything comes of all this, we'll find how watered down our attempts to hold people in power or people of power and of influence have been. Once again, it's not a tribute to Tucker, but it's a sad day for me. It really and truly is. It doesn't bother me that on Twitter some of the glee and joy, of the left. I would expect that. A lot of the conservative right, and by that I'm talking about the Lincoln Project, the Lindsey Graham crowd. With all due respect, and I don't want to single Lindsey out, but Lindsey is a South Carolina state senator, and I live in South Carolina. Therefore, we keep close tabs on what Lindsey does. I was thinking about this riding over to record the podcast. You've got the liberals. You would expect them to not care much for Tucker. You've got the conservatives. You would expect them to kind of be in lockstep with Tucker on most issues, but they aren't. They absolutely aren't. And guys, there's a clear line in the Republican Party. There are those who like the trains to run on time. And by the trains running on time, I mean they are as guilty. It's the uniparty. The liberal establishment likes the trains to run on time, and the conservative establishment likes the trains to run on time. And by that, I mean this complicity between the media, big government, big corporations, and we lost a loud voice today. Where he goes from here, no idea. I think he sold his interest. I think he's a co-founder of the Daily Caller, but he sold his interest in that. He's ample talented. He'll figure out a way to land on his feet. But I, as somebody who is somewhat involved in conservative thought, conservative media, conservative opinion, it bothers me. It bothers me that Tucker couldn't hang on. Now, once again, it may have been amicable, that they may have laid down some ground rules, and he said, I can't do that. And, the words, I just saw a story breaking just a couple of seconds ago that, Rupert Murdoch was at the center of this. Well, when your biggest star is no longer on the network, you got to believe the boss had something to do with that. I don't know who outside of Rupert Murdoch would have taken the biggest star off the network and not allow him to do kind of a curtain call or an encore. But it doesn't get to sing Born to Run, Rev. But it is what it is. It is what it is. And we'll follow this story. And I'll probably do a better job Thursday, but I'm a bit emotional today. I'm not emotional. I'm not sad. I'm not torn. It's just that, man, when you feel like you're so damn outnumbered and you feel like for every for every one punch you get to throw, you got to take 8 or 10 in return. And Tucker did that at the highest level. I'd do it at a much lesser level. The only hope America has, and I sincerely believe this, guys, the establishment left has no interest in holding power accountable. The establishment right has no interest in holding power accountable. They have decided that their life, their livelihoods, their lifestyle are better maintained by the fewer questions they ask. The buses need to run on time. If the buses run on time, I keep my house in the Hamptons. I get my 6 weeks of vacation, whatever your deal is. And somebody at some point in time has to join Tucker, conservative talk radio. It looks to me like Fox is getting a little bit diluted from this mission. But the only hope America has moving forward is for a group of people, much larger than currently, to beginning questioning authority, questioning power. I said it, and I'll say it again. It's a good day when I can convince one more person to be highly skeptical of the motivations of your federal government. Tucker Carlson did that as well as anybody. And it's a sad day on Fox News when tonight at 8, somebody other than Tucker will try to convince their watchers or their viewers, I guess whatever the Fox News brass wants them to convince them of. Thanks for joining us. And we'll kind of, I want to stew on this for a couple of days. And I got a couple of buddies, not in Tucker's world, but they would have an interesting opinion about this issue. And I would imagine Thursday's podcast may not be centered on Tucker. It'll be more factual. It'll be less speculative. We'll have a little more, I would imagine by then Tucker would have made some sort of formal comment. Fox News will probably at some point in time have a formal comment. We'll have a couple of days of whatever they're going to do with the 8 o'clock show. But today, I don't get upset much. I don't get annoyed much. I don't get bothered much. I've learned the hard way. In politics, expect the unexpected and deal with it the best way you know how. But a guy who fights the good fight, a good fight that I sincerely believe must be fought, not for Tucker's sake, not for my sake, for the future of this country. If the fewer Tucker Carlsons we have, the more likelihood America drifts off into the abyss. Forget what the leftists say on Twitter. Forget what the Lincoln Project. They're a foil. That's all they are. They're a foil in a game. They take the money. They're political prostitutes. The Lincoln Project, they're no more Republican than Democrat. They're no more independent than Democrat. They are whatever they have to be. And it would have been easy for Tucker to, you know what, Rev? It would have been real easy for Tucker to say, I'm tired of the fight. I'm not talking about January 6th anymore. I'm not talking about Ukraine anymore. I'm not talking about the vaccines anymore. The easy thing would have been, hey, put the vaccine on the back burner. Put January 6th on the back burner. Put Ukraine on the back burner. But nobody's asking those questions. And it's an abomination for the media to allow there to be so little debate on vaccines, so little debate on COVID, so little debate on Ukraine, so little debate on 12 Biden family members having offshore bank accounts. Why in the hell do you hear that on a podcast called No Stoplights? Why is not blanketed over the fold on the New York Times? Well, you know why. Because the trains need to run on time. And if you dispute what time the trains need to run, you'll end up unemployed. And most of us aren't independently wealthy. We live in transactional worlds. We need that gainful employment to keep paying our bills. Enjoy your day, and we'll talk Thursday. I want to thank our sponsors. Carolina Bank serves communities throughout northeastern South Carolina, offering a wide range of services to meet every personal or business need, from straightforward accounts to complex finances. They're prepared to help you reach your financial goals. Carolina Bank, banking on tradition since 1936. Member FDIC. Schofield's Ace Hardware, your one-stop shop for all hardware, paint and lawn and garden needs, plus all things sporting goods, including firearms, safes, clothing, footwear, and more. Pepsi of Florence represent the entire product line of PepsiCo, one of the world's leading food and beverage companies. Pepsi of Florence also serve brands from other great companies such as Dr. Pepper, Canada Dry, Lipton Tea, Gatorade, and various regional brands. Micky Finn's largest South Carolina liquor wholesaler, serving every county in the state, largest bourbon selection statewide. They ship wines to 43 states, opening soon a new beverage warehouse across from Buc-ee's on I-95 in Florence. They support USC athletics, including Williams-Brice and Colonial Life Arena. Marlboro MPD Electric Co-op. If you're in big business and looking for an industrial park in the South to build your new plant, consider Marlboro MPD Electric Co-op's new PD Commerce Center, an industrial park located at the I-95 exit in Florence, South Carolina. Check it out at MPDC Co-op or PDEC.com.